I think going to a movie a screening, or particularly a screening of a film, just going to the movie theater and watching some of the effects that we've shot, we know that when we go to see, for instance, this church, we knew it was a 6-scale miniature, which is still a big model, but when the audience reacts and is stunned and ooh, ah, and they don't know how it's done, I think it's the most gratifying, is to go in and see an audience react to something. They have no concept of how it was done, primarily to see, a floor rip apart, or a building blow up, or any series of miniature or any series of effects that people see. They just don't know how it's done, and to see them react to them as if they actually saw a building collapse, and you know full well it was just a model. That's pretty satisfying. A number of the effects that go on in the church obviously couldn't be done in full scale, because they would have destroyed the real church, or they would have been cost prohibitive as a full-size effect. Primarily when we do miniature effects is to achieve something you can't do in full size, whether it's because of just the sheer scope of the work, or in fact just because it's cost prohibitive. We had carpenters come in and frame the walls and skin them, and model makers starting all the pattern details, and then we had mold makers that would come in and make molds of all the patterns. Then we had castings of all the details. It was a pretty ornate church. I mean, we built pretty much 360 degrees of the interior of this church in 1/6 scale. So it was about, the church proportions were roughly 43 feet long. It was about, to the top of the dome is about 25 feet tall, and at the widest point within the church is about 16 feet. So it was a pretty large set. It was more of a set than just a miniature.
My job as visual effects DP in the cathedral set is to match the style of lighting that Peter Hyams has established with the First Unit Photography downtown on St. Vincent's. The challenges in doing that are that Peter's working at 24 frames a second, but we're shooting a miniature that's built at 6 scale, and the film speed is 72 frames a second to give that scale of a miniature a realistic look. And that's where the challenges for us are, is to, you work at the elevated light levels that we need for our photography and for the depth of field to make it look realistic and believable, but still match the essence and the style of photography that Peter's doing.
Please, God, help me. Give me strength.
We did miniature lighting. Basically, we had to model these chandeliers that were in the church. Each chandelier had 16 practical lights on it. We had the VFX supervisor, Don Baker, and VFX supervisor, Eric Durst, come down and look at the bulbs we were choosing. They put a light meter to them, figured that those were good wattage, good brightness, and then we used those. One of our first effects was to allow the pews to form a wave from the back of the church to the front of the church. And we built a subfloor that had a steel track in it, that had a trolley that would run underneath this floor and this steel belting that would cause the pews to go up and basically cause as if they were being lifted and then dropped from front to back. And we had about probably about a 20-foot travel from front to back. And within this mechanism, we also had an air carriage that would shoot air underneath the set, blowing debris. So you had this sort of wave of destruction and debris coming towards camera, and then again, away from camera.
Well, the pew waves there's a mechanical device that the model makers have built that's underneath the set, and it's on a conveyor belt system, and it just travels towards the camera or away from the camera, depending on what the scene was that we were doing. And it just lifts them up and then returns them into place.
Whenever we engineer an effect or any type of mechanical effect or practical effect for a show, we don't like to just show up and say, okay, we're going to blow it up once or twice and then we're done, we can't go back and do it. For the pew rig to allow the pews to go up and down, we literally built this mechanism similar to a theme park ride that could be run again and again and again. And because the pews would reset themselves in the same position every time, we could get dozens and dozens of takes. Other effects we did, the dome that's featured in the church collapses. So we built a section of this dome that would collapse, and it was sort of like a large puzzle piece almost like a jigsaw puzzle. The whole thing would be pre-broken, seamed together, then we would rough in joint compound and then paint all the seams. And we had a series of pneumatic motors on the outside that would cause the whole thing to vibrate, and then we had rods that would release pieces as it would collapse. So you'd get these cracks starting and dust would trickle down through the cracks and the pieces would start coming down. By engineering the pieces to be able to be fit back together, we could just re-seam them and drop it. Now we only did 2 takes, but we could have done 3 or 4 if necessary. It's pretty dramatic, looked good.
Well, Peter had a very specific plan of what he wanted these lights to come on in a sequence, and then these windows were to blow, and he was very specific about how much glass and debris he wanted to come into the church.
And we also had engineered 14 air mortars that would blow out the 12 and 13th large back window in the church. We did miniature stained glass that was done for approximately 4 takes, blew out all of the windows, and that was done in just with a series of air cannons.
They ran several tests to see how much pressure was needed and to how much big pieces of glass needed to be to give the look that Peter wanted.
Once we were out of breakaway windows, we were pretty much out of breakaway windows, but we kind of scabbed some other things together for some extra takes. It worked out well. And then, of course, at the end of the film, you have this apparition of the devil, or this creature that busts up out of the floor. So we built a section of the floor that had breakaway leaves that would open up. Basically, it was a set of almost like flower petals set up around the center area of this hole. Then we had pneumatic pistons that would break those open, and we had breakaway pews, and that again was something that could be shot again and again.
There's a sequence in the film where the fire beast comes out of Arnold and flies around the church. We're shooting that as a split screen where we're using flame bars on one half of the church to illuminate the opposite side of the church, and then we'll repeat that flame effect on the other side of the church, and then it's put together and composited in the end, so it'll look like there's a flame going down the center of the church and it's illuminating up all the walls.
We came up with a computerized firing circuit on fire, which has about 18, 20 separate valves all run off of a computer to where we can take fire and begin it at one point, make it chase across the room, stay on as long as we like, and then have the tail catch up to it when we want to. Or to be able to have it just a short amount of fire travel across in one frame like that.